Hello, welcome to this introductory video on the North Carolina Foundations for Early Learning and Development. This week in your class, you were asked to read the introduction section to this book. And the very first line in that says that children's experiences before they enter school matter. Research has shown that children who experience high-quality care and education and who enter school well prepared are more successful in school and later in their lives. Recognizing this as a teacher is really important. And if you notice the little block off to the side of that first introductory section, it talks about how the foundations can be used. First of all, it is to improve the teacher's knowledge of child development. As you're working with children, you're going to see that they do things at different levels. They do things based on their temperaments and personalities. They do things based on what they have been taught so far until you've gotten them. So knowing all this and knowing where that falls in that realm of child's development and learning is really important. It's also a guide for you to plan and implement curriculum, to plan the activities that you're going to plan for them, to plan for the materials you're going to provide for them to be able to do some of those activities. All of that is important, and this is a guide that will help you to do so. It also helps as a teacher to establish goals for the children's learning and development so that she can plan activities that help them to work beyond their goal, to challenge them so that they can experience new and novel things, but also so they have practice in doing some of the things that they're not quite sure of or not quite experienced at yet, to give them those opportunities. And then lastly, it says that you can use this to inform families on age-appropriate expectations for children's development and learning. Isn't it amazing that children are born and they do not come with a guidebook to that particular child? So sometimes parents don't really know at a certain age what a child should be doing or what they shouldn't be doing or how to handle certain situations. So a lot of times they're asking the teacher about that. And this will help you to know and to be able to guide them on some of the age-appropriate expectations that they should have for their child. When we're looking at the Foundations book, the introduction section also talks about how it's organized. And it's very clear-cut, and in fact, I love it because it's color-coded, but it breaks it down into the domains of development and learning. And there are 5 domains in the Foundations book. The first one is the approaches to play and learning. The second one is the emotional and social development. The third one is health and physical development. The fourth, language development and communication. And the fifth, cognitive development. And we're going to talk about each of those in just a few minutes. You come to a page that looks similar to this page that's there on the left. On the right, The 5 domains are color-coded, as I mentioned, and each of those domains have subdomains. So for instance, you see the approaches to play and learning on that page, and right underneath it in the black lettering, you see curiosity, information seeking, and eagerness. That is what we call the subdomain. And then within each subdomain, there is specific goals. So goal 1, APL, is approaches to play and learning. Number 1, children show curiosity and express interest in the world around them. And then within each of those goals, you see underneath that goldenrod continuum, and that continuum is broken down by overlapping age levels. So you notice in the little picture you have the infant that's wrapped up in its little blanket all the way up to the child who's getting ready to go into kindergarten. And that's what that continuum is supposed to represent. Here are the overlapping age ranges within that continuum that are used in NC FELD. The first one, and NC FELD is another way that we refer to the Foundations book, but the first one is infants, which is birth through 12 months. And then you'll notice that the young toddlers overlaps that because it starts at 8 months. So from 8 to 21 months is on that continuum is where those children should fall. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. Older toddlers are 18 months to 36 months, younger preschoolers 36 to 48 months, and then the older preschoolers 48 to 60 months. Notice that one doesn't necessarily overlap, but it could, depending on the developmental level of the children. Remember that children may not be displaying certain developmental indicators, and we'll talk about those in just a minute, but may not be displaying those at these ages, and that's where we want to, as teachers, plan for them to practice those skills and to have opportunities to do those skills. The guiding principles is the next section that is in your foundations book, and I'm just going to kind of read through these. There are 10 guiding principles, and if you look at the continuum and you look at each of the goals, you'll see where they all kind of line up and fit within that continuum. But development and learning happens across the continuum from birth to 5 years old, and that's very important to remember. And then that each child is unique. They're all going to do things at their own unique pace. Even though development occurs in a predictable pattern, that's how we can make the continuum. We know that they're going to have to build up their stomach muscles and their leg muscles in order to be able to roll over as an infant. We know that. That's part of that predictable pattern. Not all children are actually pulling up and standing at the same age. Not all children are speaking at the same age. So knowing that they're all going to do things at their own individual rate, but they're also going to be doing it in a predictable pattern are key for what we're doing here with the foundations. Guiding principle number 4, young children's learning is integrated across different areas of development, and that's why we have to provide experiences that address all the domains. In most of your assignments in an early childhood classroom, you may be asked to pick 1, maybe 2 goals for a specific activity, but know that most activities will cover more than 1 goal in NC FELD, and that's okay. That's the way it should be, because development just doesn't happen by itself. A child's not just going to learn how to walk. They're also going to be maybe speaking words. They're going to be learning things cognitively. So a lot of things are going to be happening all at the same time. Number 5, many factors influence a child's development. Relationships are very important for young children, and having those positive relationships with their family members and with others that they have throughout their day, such as their caregivers, their teachers, their classmates, the community in which they live. If they, do activities out in the community, they go to the library, or they go to a children's museum, or they take a part of some of the community events that happen in most of our communities around Johnston County, you know that they're getting a lot of influences from a lot of different people, places, and things that impact their world, and their learning and their thinking. Number 6, each child develops within a culture, and culture doesn't just mean the culture in which they were born. They have culture within the area where they live, the community in which they live, possibly the house of faith that they might belong to, possibly even the school community that they belong to. So there are a lot of different cultures that might impact them as well, and they develop within each and learn the norms and the rules and the expectations for each one of those and how to interact with others in those. Number 7, nurturing and responsive relationships are essential for growth and development. And I mentioned that on another slide, that we need to make sure that we are nurturing and having those responsive relationships with the youngest ones as well as the oldest ones, understanding what it is they're truly thinking and going through, as opposed to just assuming we know what that child needs, best. Number 8, children are active learners and they learn through play. There are so many different pieces to that, and I can't go into all of that in this one video, but if children are given the opportunity to learn through hands-on experiences, they gain that knowledge and understanding. They're able to manipulate materials so that they learn to understand how things work, how the world around them works, how people work, how people respond. They learn a lot through having those play experiences and play activities. but also being able to have materials that are age appropriate for them, to be able to explore and to learn things. And you go back to when you were a child and some of your favorite toys or even some of your favorite play materials. I love playing in the dirt. I just enjoyed playing in the dirt. I like getting my hands in the dirt. I love gardening now. It's one of those soothing things. So that's one of those things to think about with the children as well, having those opportunities to play and experience, and touch and feel things that they might not be able to once they get into public schools and start, their academics, as they say. So, keep in mind that foundations of what they're learning, which is the whole title of this book, is that they can learn anything and everything through play experiences. All children can learn and make progress in the areas defined in foundations. No matter where their starting level is, no matter what their abilities are right now, they can show progress, even if it's minute progress over time, and they should be showing progress. If you've got a child that started in your center, your child care program, your early learning center as an infant, you're going to see a lot of growth and changes of that child by the time they get ready to leave you and go to kindergarten. So knowing that the children can make progress in this and seeing where they are as a baseline and then being able to provide opportunities for them to learn and grow are really important for teachers to keep in mind and do this intentionally. And number 10, children with disabilities learn best in inclusive settings. As foundations will show you, all children can learn. All children can progress. That includes the children who have disabilities, no matter how severe they are. And you can look at the foundations, that continuum, and you can find, even if it's not by their age, you can find it by their developmental level and to help them progress throughout their time with you in your classroom. The early learning standards are, we know that in kindergarten, first grade, all the elementary school, middle schools, and high schools, they all have learning standards. Even here in college, you have learning standards for every class that you take, and you probably see those at the beginning of every class on the syllabus. Well, these are the early learning standards for young children. These are required to be used by the Department of Public Instruction for any of the public pre-K programs in their classrooms. They're required by the North Carolina Division of Child Development and Learning, Early Learning, the DCDEE, for any NC pre-K classroom. They're recommended for all Head Start and early Head Start programs. And I say recommended, even though most of them use them, or I believe all of them in North Carolina use them. I know in our area they do. They also have federal guidelines that they have to follow that have early learning standards as well. And our early learning standards here in North Carolina are based very similar and very close to what the others are, because we all kind of incorporate the NACE learning standards as well as some of the exceptional children learning standards, and they put all of those together for children. It's recommended for all quality early learning centers in North Carolina. That means all child care family homes, all child care centers, all preschool centers, even the half-day programs. It is recommended that everybody use these because they are very age appropriate and they're developmentally appropriate, and if they're followed and they're used, they can be considered part of the best practices for young children. And then they're used in all quality early education teacher preparation programs. Again, here at the North Carolina Community Colleges, you're going to be using it in pretty much most of your classes, and most of the universities who have the BK program, you're going to see it again there as well. Bookmark the link, and if you lose the link, it is found on the DCDEE website, and you can put in foundations and it'll take you right to it. I want to break it down by the goals now, and I'm following along with the way it is in the book, and that's why this bright, vivid color, because the domains are color-coded for you. It makes them easier to find when you're flipping through and looking through them. But the approaches to play and learning are basically about how a child approaches play, how they approach their own learning. And you can see that there are goals. And if you turn in the book, underneath each of those main goals, you'll see all of the developmental indicators. And each of those developmental indicators starts with infants and ends with the older preschoolers, you can see the gradual progression of some of the things that they can do. For instance, we know that children are just normally curious about things. They're going to ask you questions when they get older. They're going to express interest in the world. That young baby, even the youngest of babies, they come to us in childcare at about 6 weeks old. You can take that baby and you can talk to that baby, and they will just intently stare at you and look at you and see you and watch your mouth as you're talking to them. If you take them outside and you have a leaf or a tree or even some kind of wind chime out there that you can hold them in front of and let them see, they're going to intently study that. They haven't yet probably grasped that, being able to reach out and grab it. They're not there yet, but they're still showing an interest, and they're taking in all this information. They're using their ears. They're using the smell. They're using how things feel when they touch their bodies. So they're using all that to show that curiosity. And so if you really read these with that in mind, and you read these and recognize, oh, this is really where an infant is, and this is where a preschooler should be, it makes things make a little more sense. But approaches to play and learning is the first of the goals. Emotional and social development is another goal, and again, it's broken down into subdomains: the development of a sense of self, the development of a sense of self with others, and then learning about feelings. We know that children don't come into the world knowing how to express their emotions. They actually express a need for something. I need my diaper changed, I'm hungry, there's a need. They haven't really developed that sense of who they are yet, or self-awareness. That's one of the reasons why we put infants a lot of times in front of a mirror, so they can see themselves, they can start to see the faces and that kind of thing. And then it progresses up to where, you can walk into a preschool room and you can spend 10 minutes in that room, and you know who the leaders are in that class and who the followers are and who the quiet ones are and who the louder ones are. You kind of know a little bit about personalities after about 10 minutes in a class, if it takes even that long. So you see that progression already from being an infant all the way up to the older children, how those things can progress. And again, NC FELD breaks it down in that continuum to help you to understand as a teacher exactly where they should be, at what level, and what you should be helping them and giving them opportunities to experience. Health and physical development talks about their physical health and growth as well as their motor development. We know we have large motors and we have fine motor skills. And so, the two little boys here in this picture, they're on a growth chart. So we know that there is definitely a difference between an infant or toddler and a 3 or 4 year old as far as heights, even their eating habits, even their physical activity, things that they are able to do when they get outside, and even their sleeping patterns change as they get older. So recognizing those things and recognizing, what they should be doing or experiencing at that time, and what you should be giving them opportunities to experience, is important. As far as large motor muscle skills, they use that a lot when they're outside, but there are also opportunities for them to use those large muscles inside. Grabbing a container off of a cabinet to pull it down onto the floor or onto a table, or lifting something to put the toys away at the end of the day. Those are using large motor skills. Those fine motor skills and hand-eye coordination to be able to manipulate objects is really important too, and teachers watch for that. We find out usually around the time they're about 2 or 3 what hand they use or they predominantly use for certain things. So knowing what to be looking for is important when you observe children during their active times. Self-care and safety awareness are also things to be aware of. I love that this one talks about the safety awareness, because children, when they're younger, they don't recognize that piece of it, and they might fall easily and that kind of thing. As they get older, they recognize certain hazards to avoid, even on a play area. And that's one of the reasons why if you go to a child care center that does infant care all the way up to school age care, you see that even the playgrounds look different. Infant and toddler are usually much lower to the ground. They have more space for sand and water type things, where the older children have more running space than the toddlers do. But they also have taller climbers if there are climbers on the playground. So, you can kind of see and judge the difference on some of that way. But looking at the children learning these concepts is ideal, and you need to make sure that as a teacher that you are giving them opportunities to experience some of these challenging but age-appropriate activities. Language and communication, again, another bright, vivid one. But children are learning to communicate, and it goes from understanding language all the way to speaking language. And so we know that children start to understand language pretty young, and before they even speak language. So, giving them opportunities to hear language, that's one of the reasons if you go into a quality infant room, they're going to be narrating a lot of things that baby is doing. They're going to be talking to that baby as if that baby can talk back. They're going to be not necessarily baby talking with the baby, but talking to them about concepts. Oh, you like the blue ball, and giving them that blue ball. They're going to be giving them the words to describe some of the things that they're doing in the classroom. And then we're going to build the foundations for reading, because that goes along with that language development and communication, and interest in books. We read books over and over and over and over to young children. They like books. They love to sit in your lap and read a book during informal reading. They love group time reading. So giving them the opportunity to have books and experience books in different ways is important. Big books, little books, hard books, soft books. So giving them those opportunities, and not just sitting them in front of a screen all of the time. And shouldn't be sitting them in front of a screen anyway. And then the foundations for writing also goes along with this, because children will learn to write from the symbols that they see. Children learn to read from the symbols that they see. I can't imagine a child whose parent frequents Walmart, McDonald's, Target, Lowe's Home Improvement, or Home Depot, where a child you can't pull up into the parking lot and the child can't say, yay, we're at Walmart, or yay, I want to go to McDonald's, I want a Happy Meal, because they recognize the symbol. And even if it is somewhere in their classroom, they're going to recognize it as Target. They're going to recognize that Target as the Target symbol for the store. So they start to recognize familiar things that they see and they hear people label all the time. And that's important for writing skills as well. So, giving them those opportunities to experience those things even before they're able to pick up the pen and actually write a word. Cognitive development is broken down into even more minute. You see here that there are 4 slides for this green one, but you have construction of knowledge, the thinking and reasoning skills, the creative expression, that creativity and how children express their creativity, social connections, how they connect with each other, the roles that they play within their families, within the classroom itself. All of those things are part of this cognitive development. And then we get into mathematical thinking and expression, scientific exploration and knowledge. All of those things are part of that cognitive development. You'll notice there are 15 goals within this domain. So this one has a lot. The end of the book, it talks about supporting dual language learners. We know that in North Carolina, we have a growing population of children who do not necessarily speak English in their home. So giving them the opportunity to have their language incorporated into the classroom is ideal for that student. Number one, it shows respect for their culture and it shows respect for their home language, but also helping them with some of these other skills, because that's what they know. Like I said, with the McDonald's symbol or the Target symbol, they recognize things that they know. And if they see language in their language when they go to a store or they go somewhere else, they're going to learn to pick those words up quicker, and they're going to be better at the reading and the writing skills. than if they don't see them and if they're not incorporated into their school and their classroom environment. Foundations provides a clear developmental sequence of language acquisition, which is really helpful if you look at the chart that's at the end of the book, well, near the end of the book, where it talks about the dual language learners. You'll see that sequence of language, but it also gives you some suggested activities that you could do at each one of those stages for the children that is very culturally sensitive, so that we're not just always having it there just because it's there, but also making it so that we're using it. My goal for this is that you will continue to explore the North Carolina Foundations for Early Learning and Development. I swear every time I go through it, and I've been using this thing for years now, I feel like I learned something new, or I see something I didn't notice before, or maybe I just came at it with a different lens. But keep it really, truly, bookmark it, keep it. If you need a physical copy of it, I'm sure there are places where you can get some. I know at the college libraries of the community colleges, a lot of the early childhood faculty have put them in the libraries so that you can check them out and you can have them during the semester to use if you need a physical book. I love flipping through the book. I love being able to find things and mark things and having my own book. And you can order those from the DCDE website as well. But they are electronic, so you can download it onto your phone and have that link on your phone, and you can have access to it at any time. It is really important that you take the time to read that introduction section and kind of become familiar with it. And even in the introduction section, it says the first thing you should do is read it cover to cover. And in most of our classes at the community college, you will be reading it cover to cover eventually, but we start with the introduction section, and we really want you to pay attention to that so that you know how to use it when it comes time to use it to do your activity planning. I hope you have a great day.